we're not going to burn down the suburbs, ban the car, and start living in sort of collective units in the. I mean, obviously, right? That's not what we're talking about as a solution. So how can we have it all? How can we live and enjoy the benefits of this modern society? And the benefits are enormous. I mean, we need a whole other hour just to enumerate them. We're very, very lucky to live in this society in all kinds of ways. But how can we have that and reclaim some of the sort of communal energy and connection that clearly makes people feel good and that arises spontaneously in a crisis, like a war or a catastrophe? How can we have that thing, that communal thing, without the crisis, without the war? You have to do it proactively. You have to say, I want to make that happen. It'll happen naturally if we get slammed with a hurricane, but let's not wait for that. Let's make it happen. As you automate things, people need each other less and less, and just engage with each other less and less. And there's a real harm there. And so we know in the last 10, 15 years, suicide rates, depression rates, anxiety rates have all been going up. And I can't prove, I'm not interested in somehow proving that that's the effect of the internet and social media on our sort of collective mental health, but it is interesting to note. I mean, that it exactly coincides with young people shifting the central energy of their social interactions from one-on-one in the same room to online. Like the shift has happened in the last 10 years, and the anxiety rates in young people has skyrocketed, as has suicide and everything else. So I think the great lie of our generation is the phrase social media. It's really not social media. It's anti-social media. It has great applications. It's great for disseminating information, organizing people. I mean, the internet is amazing, right? Like, God forbid we lose it. All of human knowledge in this little machine, right? I mean, it's incredible. But I say it's anti-social media because when you put people in a group, when you put them in a room, you put them in a restaurant, they will ignore each other in order to pay attention to something that it basically is just ones and zeros on the screen. Or the kind of community that happens on Facebook is better than nothing, but it's not community. It really isn't. It's a pale substitute for sitting on a porch and drinking a beer with somebody and really talking.
You have a real flip phone.
I do have a real flip phone.
And you said that you didn't go back to it. You never left.
I never left her.
So you never went like iPhone, Android, never?
No, oh. never even thought about it.
Never even thought about it?
No.
You see people taking pictures and using apps, nothing?
Nothing. I don't need the apps. I'm good.
There's no draw at all, nothing, using the internet, answering email when you have spare time?
I have a laptop at home, and I do access the internet, yes.
But when you're out, you don't want to mess with it?
No, when I'm out, I want to be out. I'm in the world,
Right.
And if you're looking at your phone, you're not in the world, and so you don't get either. You don't get either thing. I mean, I'm an anthropologist, and I'm interested in human behavior, and I look at the behavior, like literally the physical behavior of people with smartphones, and it looks antisocial and unhappy and anxious, and I don't want to look like that, and I don't want to feel like I think those people feel.
It's really interesting because I was at a restaurant the other day, and I was looking around, and literally everyone in the restaurant was looking at their phone. No one was talking to anybody. And I was thinking, what if there was a drug that did that? What if there was a drug that didn't kill you, but it just sucked up all your time and you just stared blankly at your hand and did everything that you do while you're using a phone? People would be terrified. Like you're staring at your hand and crashing into cars. You're staring at your hand and walking into poles. Perhaps maybe with some discipline, they can be used in some sort of a way that benefits us and not.
Well, yeah. I mean, all that information is available on your laptop at your desk at home.
Right.
I mean, I think the problem is when people want to be socially connected constantly, no matter what they're doing. And that, I think, keeps people from actually fully experiencing whatever they're actually doing. Like, I do understand the power of it and the appeal of it. I'm not saying there aren't great things about it. Of course there are. Again, if you look at mental health statistics in this country, we're doing something wrong because they're all going in the wrong direction.
I agree with you. I just wonder if the mental health statistics are indicative of other issues. I think lifestyle, what you do with your time during the day. I know a lot of people live like very deeply unsatisfying lives, and I don't know if the phone accentuates that problem. I mean, we were talking the other day about we were at the airport, we were waiting to fly home, and there was some girl, and she was talking, we were just eavesdropping, and she was talking about like The Amazing Race, and how she, oh, this show's so boring now, and I can't wait to, and I'm going to eat this, and then I'm going to eat that, and I'm supposed to get a raise at work. It's like all nonsense, non-engaging, not interesting.
Yeah.
There's no real life to anything she's talking about. I'm like, this is most of our country, or a large part of our country.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about social media is that it sort of weaponizes blandness. I mean, it gives people a platform for the most mundane, uninteresting aspects of their lives, because they have to constantly be producing some kind of output of communication. There's other people you could have on the show that could speak more intelligently to this, but I know that, I've heard that risk of suicide and Facebook are correlated. In other words, people that are on Facebook and in social media, they are at an increased risk of depression and thoughts of suicide, and that's terrifying.
Do you think that that's correlation equals causation, though? You know what I mean? Like, do you think that people on Facebook all the time are doing that because they're already depressed?
Well, right. I mean, that's the question, but the correlation means we have to look at something more closely. Anxiety rates in teenagers have skyrocketed. Anxiety partly comes from sort of a painful self-awareness, and of course that's amplified by social media, because you can never escape the opinions of your peers. I mean, that's crippling to people. I mean, I wasn't the most popular kid in class by a long shot. I mean, when I came home, whatever my issues were on hold until, when I was a kid in high school. Those issues were on hold till 8 a.m. the next morning. Right? You got a 12-hour break from your problems. Now you don't, and it's really tough on kids. And I think people are coming to the book a little bit just partly because they're wondering, what is the glue that holds us all together, and does that exist still? I think there's a real question in people's minds about what is it that binds us together.
Well, there certainly is, and you really covered a lot of the sort of just not commonly discussed aspects of it, like the need for real community, the need to really, and the need to have something on the line. Yeah. The need to be in situations where there's real consequences, and that it seems that this is part of the glue that holds us together.
Well, the thing about technology is it buffers us from real consequences in the physical world, which is what's great about it, right? And but the downside is that as humans get buffered from consequences, they need each other less and less in order to survive. So now, sort of modern Homo sapiens in a suburban house with an iPhone and a garage door opener and all that stuff. You get a paycheck at work, and you don't need your neighbors, to help you gather food or hunt food or defend yourself from the gang from the other neighborhood. I mean, it all kind of gets taken care of, which is a great liberation from your neighbors, from your community, but it deprives you of that essential human reliance on other people around you. That's what makes people feel good and safe and like they're leading meaningful lives. And so that transition to having a life that's not part of any community, that is a really tough one for people. And I think that's part of the reason for high depression rates and such, and high PTSD rates in our society.
Yeah, I think that lack of community is a very confusing thing when you see most people just sliding into their garage and shutting the door or going into their house, and they don't even know their neighbors. That's really highlighted in your book, how alien that is to the human experience until fairly recently.
The problem with the suburbs is that everything's a stone. Everyone's a stone's throw away and behind a big hedge, and you don't have to share an elevator with anyone. You can be totally isolated.
My children's friends, parents. So I'm interacting with these people that I don't know from work, I don't know from social circles, and and most of them are great, but a lot of them are on pills. Like a lot of them. Like half of them are on pills.
On pills,
Yeah, and you're like, and they're taking Adderall, they're taking anxiety medication, and they're taking antidepressants, and they're mixing it all together with alcohol, and there's some new freak out every week, and there's literally no physical fear for anything. Yeah. Everyone's driving a Mercedes, everyone's living in a gated community, everybody's it's all smooth edges and nerfed corners. Right. Everything is very soft and easy, and the big appeal seems to be the newest objects.
Yeah.
chase the newest objects.
And it's a really well-known phenomenon that if you introduce a disaster into that environment, if you introduce the Blitz in London or an earthquake or what have you, a flood, a tidal wave, a war, people wake up out of their dream. I mean, they're in a kind of dream state. And for some people that's induced by pills, and some people it's just induced by isolation. But they're in a kind of dream state where they're not part of society in a meaningful way, and a catastrophe wakes them up out of that. And people, I mean, over and over again, you can hear testimony of people saying, "Well, I really miss those days. You know, the days after the earthquake, during the Blitz." I mean, you from generation after generation that goes through their things, right? Their tough things. Those days are missed. And they're missed because people, the thing they actually like most is being an essential part of a small group that is struggling to survive. Like, that is the human experience for hundreds of thousands of years. We're wired for it. We're wired to like it. The people that responded to that challenge tended to pass on their DNA. The people that didn't respond well didn't pass on their DNA. We're the descendants of the people that sort of took some thrill and from that challenge and acted well and with sort of vigor and with community in the face of hardship and danger. We're the descendants of those people. And so that's one of the things we're missing. And the big trick is, I mean, I'm not saying burn down the suburbs, ban the car, and live in a lean-to. I mean, no one would say that. There's huge benefits to this society too. But the trick is, how can we have that close communal connection that buffers us from mental health problems, that makes us feel meaningful and fulfilled? How can we have that and have the benefits of modern society? You know, like, can we do both? And I think that's the big challenge, because what I see in America, I love this country, but what I see in my lifetime, I mean, when I grew up, we didn't have mass shootings. I mean, you know, like that didn't happen. You go into a church with a machine gun and kill as many people as you can. That just didn't happen. What is going on? I mean, to me, it's a country in kind of, I mean, those things are all a symptom of a country that's in a kind of psychic pain. You know, and all the people on their iPhones, I sort of get it, but also it makes me think, you're anxious. Like, you're so anxious that you can't bear not to look at your feed for more than 20 seconds.
Well, it's an addiction for sure. I mean, you're literally getting dopamine shots every time you check your feed.
Yeah.
And they're very small. It's a trickle. It's not like it's not really worth it. You don't get any real good feeling. Very rarely. It's
like fast food. Like, at the end of it, you know, you go to pull at the drive-in, you know, get your cheeseburger and fries and shake or whatever. Afterwards, you're full, but you didn't get any nutrients. And social media is the same way. You're sort of socially full, but actually it's all calories. There's no nutrition. I mean, there's nothing to sustain you after that. And so, for me, when I was writing Tribe, I was trying to make sense of a number of different things. I mean, one was that the soldiers I was with in Afghanistan, I was really struck some months later that a lot of them wanted to go back to this sort of flea-bitten, God-forsaken outpost where they got shot at every day and didn't want to come home to the U.S. It's like, that needs explaining.
Yeah.
Right? And it made me think of this uncle that I had, a sort of surrogate uncle named Ellis Settle. He was Lakota, Sioux, and Apache. He was born in 1929. Out west, and he had a very rough, interesting life, and he was very well read. And I remember him telling me, he was a sort of mentor figure for me, and I remember him telling me when I was in my 20s, he said, you know, all throughout the history of the United States, along the frontier, and this is how he put it, he said, white people were always running off to join the Indians, and the Indians never ran off to join the white people. And indeed, I mean, there was this incredible sort of hemorrhaging of people from the frontier to the tribes, and even when people were kidnapped on raids by the Indians, kidnapped from their log homes along the frontier and abducted and forcibly adopted into these tribal societies, when given the chance to come home to be repatriated, some years later, very often these people refused to go. They didn't want to go back. They wanted to stay with their adopted tribe, their adopted community. That's amazing to me, and it says a lot about the way humans are wired to want to live.
Yeah, that was one of the craziest aspects of your book. I'd never heard that before, and how many people had done that, where they were kidnapped and then they said, "We like it here better."
Yeah, that's right.
And again, we're talking about more than 100 years ago. So that what we think of as modern society today has only escalated those anxieties. And
That's the modern world, and that's what nobody wants to be part of, including the soldiers I was with at Restrepo, right? And so it just made me think, maybe what the soldiers are missing isn't war, although that certainly has its charms for some people, but it's community.